In a quaint, ivy-covered house in a bustling small town, Katie Smith, a 32-year-old nurse, faced the unrelenting weight of her daily responsibilities. The kitchen, usually a place of warmth and comfort, had become a battlefield of resentment. "You can't even prepare the food properly. Bring it to me now, you're making Mom furious," her husband, Harry, barked, his voice sharp with frustration. Before Katie could respond, he stormed out, clutching an extra bottle of wine, his footsteps echoing his disregard. As always, he offered no help, leaving her alone amidst the chaos. With a heavy heart, Katie knelt to gather the shattered remnants of broken dishes, her hands trembling with exhaustion. "Why must I always do this?" she whispered to herself, the question hanging in the air like a bitter fog. She despised these moments, trapped in a cycle of unending chores. At that moment, her father-in-law, Tyler, entered the kitchen, his arrival unnoticed until he stood in the doorway. He had arrived late, likely drawn by the sharp clatter of breaking porcelain. His eyes widened in surprise at the sight of the meticulously arranged dishes lining the counter, a testament to Katie's relentless efforts. "Goodness, Katie, did you manage all this by yourself?" he asked, his tone laced with admiration and concern. Katie, forcing a weary smile, replied in a self-mocking tone, "Oh, it happens all the time." She rose, clutching the jagged pieces of broken plates, her movements heavy with resignation. Tyler's expression shifted from surprise to anger as he noticed the misery etched across her face. Without hesitation, he declared, "I'm going to speak with my wife about this. You should come with me." Taking her gently by the arm, he led her to the living room, determined to uncover the root of her distress. Katie, a woman of resilience and quiet strength, had been married to Harry, 3 years her senior, for nearly a year. Their marriage, still in its infancy, was meant to be a joyful chapter, but it was overshadowed by their decision to live with Harry's mother, Miley. Harry had insisted on moving in to care for his mother, who was often alone while Tyler worked out of town. Initially, Katie had embraced the idea, envisioning a household filled with mutual support and shared responsibilities. She imagined cozy evenings and collaborative efforts to ease the burdens of daily life. But reality had proven far harsher, revealing a dynamic that left her feeling isolated and overwhelmed. One particularly grueling morning, after a draining night shift at the general hospital where she had recently started to hone her skills, Katie returned home exhausted. Her body ached, and her mind was clouded with fatigue from the unfamiliar midnight to 8:30 a.m. schedule. As she stepped through the door, hoping for a moment of rest, Miley's voice cut through the silence. "Katie, you're terrible," she snapped, her words sharp enough to be heard by neighbors passing by. "You didn't even make me breakfast. What are you thinking?" Confused and disoriented, Katie explained that she had prepared breakfast the previous night before leaving for work, assuming Harry had eaten it all. But Miley's criticism didn't relent. Rubbing her bleary eyes, Katie dragged herself to the kitchen to prepare another meal, her movements mechanical. When she finished, Miley offered no gratitude. Instead, she took one bite and grimaced. "This is too salty," she complained. Katie, too weary to argue, tried to slip away to rest, but Miley stopped her. "Hey, Katie, where do you think you're going? You still have dishes to clean," Katie pleaded. "Miley, I just finished my shift. Could you please handle them?" But Miley's response was unyielding. "Cleaning is part of cooking, isn't it? I left the dishes and laundry for you. If you're taking a break, take care of those first." Defeated, Katie summoned the last of her energy to comply, her mother-in-law's words echoing in her mind. "You're Harry's wife, aren't you? You don't have a child to keep you busy." Miley's expectations extended beyond chores. She frequently hinted at her desire for grandchildren, her comments laced with pressure. "I heard my friend's daughter-in-law conceived on their honeymoon," she once remarked, her tone dripping with envy. "Another friend's daughter-in-law is already a mother of 3. I'm so jealous. I can't wait to meet my grandchildren." Katie, who longed to start a family, felt the weight of these expectations. She had been diligent, taking supplements, monitoring her health, and even visiting a shrine renowned for its blessings of fertility. Yet, despite her efforts, she had not conceived, and Miley's remarks only deepened her sense of inadequacy. After finishing the chores, Katie turned to Miley, hoping to finally rest. But before she could speak, Miley smiled and said, "Thank you for your hard work, but it's almost lunchtime. Pasta will do." It was noon before Katie collapsed into bed, her body heavy with exhaustion. Later, during a rare evening when their schedules aligned, Katie shared news from her recent fertility clinic visit. "Honey, the doctor wants us to come together on Saturday morning to discuss a treatment plan," she said, explaining her initial consultation, which involved submitting a basal body temperature chart and undergoing blood tests. Harry, distracted, replied, "What's that?" "I've never heard of that before," his disinterest adding another layer to Katie's quiet struggles. In the dim light of their modest bedroom, Katie Smith sat on the edge of the bed, her heart heavy with worry about her inability to conceive. "You told me to go to the hospital since I was concerned about not having children," her husband, Harry, said, his voice tinged with irritation. Katie nodded, understanding his skepticism. When she first learned about fertility treatments, she, too, had assumed they were solely a woman's responsibility. That misconception had led her to attend her initial clinic visit alone, nervous but hopeful. However, the doctor's words had been clear. Cooperation between both husband and wife is essential for successful treatment. The physician explained that conception required not only healthy eggs from the wife, but also normal reproductive function from the husband. Tests would assess semen volume, concentration, motility, and morphology to detect issues like azoospermia, which could significantly impact the treatment plan. "Your husband's semen analysis is just as critical as your tests," the doctor emphasized. Katie, eager for Harry to understand, pleaded, "I want you to be part of the treatment plan, too." Harry's response was dismissive. "Why can't you handle it alone?" "It's none of my business." Katie's voice softened, but her resolve held firm. "It's about both of us, isn't it?" She hesitated, then added, "Every time I see Miley, she asks why we don't have children yet." Harry's face darkened. "Don't speak ill of my mother. It's your fault. You're the one who's infertile. Fix it." Katie's chest tightened, but she pressed on. "I need your cooperation. Beyond checking my fallopian tubes and follicles, a sperm analysis is essential for fertility testing." Harry scoffed. "I'm healthy. We have a good marriage and I have plenty of sperm. There's no need for a test." Desperate, Katie challenged, "Then prove it to me." Harry's tone grew sharp. "How would you like it if a colleague saw me in a place like that? Are you trying to humiliate me? I'm not going." Feeling she might have approached it wrong, Katie watched as Harry, as if to end the conversation, pulled the covers over his head and began snoring loudly. She sighed deeply, her gaze lingering on his form, frustration and exhaustion intertwining. As a nurse at a general hospital, Katie was no stranger to grueling schedules. Her new employer operated a 3-shift system, day shifts, 4 or 5 late-night shifts monthly, and about 8 night or semi-night shifts. The irregular hours were manageable, but the real challenge lay at home. Her mother-in-law, Miley, issued constant orders, leaving Katie with no respite. Despite hospital policies exempting nurses from day shifts after night shifts, household demands meant Katie rarely had a true day off. "If I'd known this is what it would be like, I never would have changed jobs," she thought bitterly. A year into her marriage, Miley's criticism had escalated. When Katie and Harry first wed, Miley had been kind, never pushing her to do chores. But over the past 6 months, as Katie's fertility struggles persisted, Miley's demeanor soured. Katie's once healthy frame had withered. She'd become frail, almost sickly, though neither Harry nor Miley seemed to notice the gradual change, perhaps because they saw her daily. One warm summer evening, Harry approached Katie with a gleam in his eye. "We're celebrating Mom's 60th birthday this Sunday," he announced. "She's thrilled to invite her friends, so you'll need to handle the preparations." He handed her a piece of paper covered in Miley's meticulous handwriting, listing guest names, contact details, a detailed menu, specific tableware, preferred liquor brands, and even the order of food service. Katie's eyes widened at the scope. 10 guests, an elaborate spread, and the event scheduled for noon, right after her late shift. 10 people? This much food? She murmured, stunned. Harry shrugged. Mom says Sunday works for her. You'll manage. You're always up past noon anyway. It won't be a problem. He left the room, leaving Katie to grapple with the daunting task, knowing neither he nor Miley would lift a finger to help. The morning of Miley's 60th birthday arrived, and Katie, bleary-eyed from her late-night shift, stumbled home feeling dizzy. She had completed the laundry and cleaning the previous night, but discovered Harry had eaten some of the pre-purchased food, forcing her to shop again. As guests began arriving, Katie juggled preparing drinks, appetizers, and glasses while Miley, elegantly dressed, played the gracious host. Racing against time, Katie struggled to ready the main course. "What are you doing, Katie? You're late," Harry shouted, likely at Miley's urging. Just as she neared completion of the all-important dish, Harry stormed into the kitchen, his brow furrowed at the sight of the unfinished food. "You can't even prep the food right. Bring it now, you're making Mom mad," he snapped, grabbing an extra bottle of wine and cursing as he left. In that moment, a stack of precariously balanced plates toppled from the kitchen table, crashing to the floor in a cacophony of shattering porcelain, mirroring the chaos of Katie's overburdened life. In the cluttered kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of a chaotic morning, Katie Smith stood frozen, her heart pounding with dread. The shattered remains of her mother-in-law Miley's cherished plates lay scattered across the floor, their delicate floral patterns now reduced to jagged fragments. "That's your fault. You shouldn't have stacked them like that," Harry, her husband, said with an infuriating calm, his words cutting deeper than the broken porcelain. Without another glance, he turned and left the kitchen, offering no assistance, as was his custom. Alone once more, Katie crouched down, her knees trembling, and began silently gathering the shards. A wave of resentment surged within her. "Why am I always the one to do everything?" she muttered, the weight of her exhaustion and frustration pressing down like a physical force. She loathed these moments, trapped in an endless cycle of thankless tasks. A gentle voice broke through her thoughts. "What's wrong? Are you hurt?" Startled, Katie turned to see her father-in-law, Tyler, standing in the kitchen doorway, clutching a large package wrapped in festive paper. The sound of the crashing plates must have drawn him in. His eyes, filled with genuine concern, met hers, and for the first time in months, Katie felt seen. It had been so long since anyone in this house had spoken to her with kindness, since New Year's Day, in fact, when she last saw Tyler. Overwhelmed, she fought back tears as he crossed the room to kneel beside her, helping to collect the broken pieces with care. His gaze swept over the kitchen, taking in the mountains of food and meticulously arranged dishes. "Goodness, Katie, did you prepare all this by yourself?" he asked, his voice laced with astonishment as he glanced around, searching for signs of help that didn't exist. "It happens all the time," Katie replied, her tone heavy with self-mocking resignation. She stood, clutching the sharp fragments, her hands unsteady. Tyler fell silent, his expression shifting as he truly saw her. The vibrant, lively Katie he remembered from months ago was gone. Her once lustrous hair hung thin and disheveled, her skin sallow, with dark circles shadowing her eyes. She looked frail, a ghost of the woman she had been. As he took in the piles of food and the chaos of the kitchen, realization dawned, and his surprise hardened into anger. "I'm going to ask my wife what's going on. You should come with me," he said, his voice low and resolute, a tone Katie had never heard from him before. She hesitated, glancing at the sink. "I haven't done the dishes yet," she protested weakly. Tyler's response was firm but kind. "You don't have to." Despite her reluctance, he gently guided her to the living room, his presence a quiet reassurance. In the living room, Miley was in her element, chatting animatedly with guests and pouring wine from the bottle Harry had brought. "Hey, Katie, how long are you going to make me wait?" she called out, her tone sharp. Then, spotting Tyler, her face lit up. "Oh, you finally showed up. Everyone, this is my husband. He's been working out of town and came home just for me." The guests greeted Tyler with warm nods and smiles, and he returned the gestures with a polite nod. "Thank you all for coming today. I'm Tyler, Miley's husband. My foolish wife is grateful for your hospitality," he said, his tone light but carrying an edge. Miley laughed, feigning offense. "Oh my God, you called me a foolish wife. It's my birthday." Tyler's smile didn't waver. "You are foolish. Truly." That single word shifted the room's atmosphere, the cheerful chatter giving way to an awkward silence. Tyler gently pulled Katie forward, though she tried to shrink behind him. Facing the guests, he spoke with quiet authority. "I'd like to introduce my son's wife, Katie." Miley interjected, "Hey, honey, Katie's busy preparing," but Tyler's glare silenced her. "A year and a half ago, Katie married my son. She was a cheerful, smiling young woman, and I was certain they'd have a bright future together. But look at her now. She didn't look this miserable 6 months ago." Murmurs rippled through the guests, some noting how different Katie appeared from her wedding photos, how gaunt and weary she had become. Turning to Miley, Tyler's voice grew stern. "Why has she changed so much?" Miley faltered, her confidence wavering. "Well, I don't know, probably because work is too hard. I told you on the phone she changed hospitals and has been on night shifts since the start of the year." Tyler's eyes narrowed. Are all her colleagues suffering like this? If so, it's a violation of the Fair Labor Standards Act. I'll contact the union. Miley stammered, "No, that's not." But Tyler cut her off. "Are you still pretending you don't know? I just learned you've been relentless with Katie, giving her no time to rest. She worked a late-night shift, then you expected her to cook all this alone, with no sleep after a long shift." Katie had confided in him moments earlier, pouring out the truth. For 6 months, she had been treated like a housekeeper, with no days off, her spirit and health eroded by unending demands. Tyler's gaze shifted to Harry, who stood nearby, avoiding eye contact. "And you, Harry, you knew Katie was struggling. Why haven't you done anything?" Harry shrugged defensively. "It's between Katie and Mom. I had nothing to do with it." Tyler's voice rose, sharp with disappointment. "What did you vow at your wedding? Didn't you swear to protect and support her? To make her happy? Does she look happy to you?" Harry mumbled. "Well, there were times I thought it was a bit much, but Mom said it's normal for a woman without a child to do all this." Tyler's response was scathing. "As a husband, you put your partner before your mother. Have you forgotten how your first marriage ended because you pushed her too far?" In the tense silence of the living room, Harry's face flushed a deep crimson, his eyes wide with shock and shame. Katie stood frozen, her jaw dropping as the pieces of a painful puzzle fell into place. She had known Harry was divorced before their marriage, but the revelation that his ex-wife had endured the same mistreatment she had suffered hit her like a thunderbolt. The realization crystallized in her mind, sharp and undeniable. Miley, her mother-in-law, seized the moment to defend her actions, her voice shrill with indignation. "Let me tell you something. This is the kind of work she should be doing as a woman without children. It's been a year and a half since they married, and she still can't have a baby. She's an unfit wife." Tyler, his face stern, countered fiercely. "Even if she were infertile, you can't blame her for that. You're just taking it out on her." Miley's composure cracked. "How dare you? You've been gone for so long, what do you know? Everyone brags about their grandchildren, and I'm the only one without any. I'm lonely. I want a grandchild as soon as possible." Her voice broke, and she collapsed into tears, her sobs echoing through the room. Katie's heart softened briefly for Miley, but the pity couldn't erase the mental and physical toll of the past 6 months. The knowledge that Miley had mistreated Harry's ex-wife as well only deepened her resolve. Stepping forward, she spoke with unwavering firmness. "I don't think you'll be getting any grandchildren for a long time." She held out a small stack of papers retrieved from her room, results from her fertility clinic tests. Blood tests, AMH, uterine and fallopian tube drainage, anti-sperm antibody tests. Everything is normal. My body is fine. If the situation was the same with his ex-wife, can't you guess what's wrong? The problem lies with Harry. Turning to her husband, she continued, "You had a hunch, didn't you? That's why you refused the semen test. Yet instead of protecting me, you treated me like a housekeeper, just like your mother does. I loved you, so I thought I could keep these results private. But you yelled at me again, refused to help, and now I learn you did terrible things to your ex-wife. I don't care anymore." Harry stammered, his voice desperate. "Wait, it's not true. I can't be infertile, right?" Katie's gaze was unflinching. "Why don't you get a proper examination? But regardless of the results, it's not important to me anymore." With that, she turned her back on Harry, who shouted feeble excuses, and Miley, still sobbing, and strode out of the living room. As she closed the door, the faint sound of guests quietly slipping away reached her ears, their departure marking the end of the facade. In the weeks that followed, Katie and Harry finalized their divorce through an attorney. Harry resisted, but Tyler's foresight in recording the confrontation proved invaluable. The recording documented the emotional abuse Katie had endured from both Harry and Miley over 6 months, strengthening her case. A sperm analysis later confirmed Harry had azoospermia, a revelation that infuriated Miley, who turned her anger on her son. The fallout extended beyond their household. Miley and Tyler also divorced. Tyler confided in Katie, his voice heavy with regret. "I had hoped Harry and Miley would change after his ex-wife's experience, but they didn't. That's why I ended it." He apologized for not recognizing Katie's plight sooner and for not urging Harry to undergo a semen analysis before their marriage. Rumors swirled in their small town. Miley, ousted from her home, now lived with Harry in public housing, shunned by her former friends. The scandal of the birthday confrontation spread, tarnishing Harry's reputation at work. Meanwhile, Tyler, ever supportive, introduced Katie to a colleague, a man he described as dependable and kind. After 6 months of dating, Katie remarried, finding in her new husband a partner who cherished her. They settled into a life filled with mutual respect and joy. One morning, a routine visit to an obstetrician brought thrilling news. Katie was 2 months pregnant. Eager to share the moment with Tyler, who had not only saved her from a toxic situation but also played matchmaker, she planned a visit to tell him in person, her heart brimming with gratitude and hope for the future. Please feel free to comment below if you liked this. Remember to like and subscribe for more.